What it is, YouTube? It's your boy DC coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. We are going to be doing a full mix breakdown on how to achieve those pro mainstream clarity, Roddy Ricch, Autotune style vocals. So this is for the melodic people, the melodic rappers, okay? And just trying to get that clarity, that mainstream clarity with not a drop of harshness. If y'all like this video today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Down below, you want to support the channel, check the link, and in the comments, let me know what you think. So we're going to play the whole track, then we're going to start breaking it down.
Se faire sauter toute la city by my side. I go higher, tête haute, les yeux en flammes. Pour les millions de la gare faible, ceux qui vont mes guides sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix sang et cher. Accordez-moi un instant, suis sur le chemin, sur ce serai. Travail 7 sur 7 pour les frères, dit en fer. Encerclé des âmes multicouleurs, mais quelle douleur. Nos siècles de douleur s'évanouissent dans l'oubli. Offenseurs des ancêtres, pleurnicheurs et nouveaux. Je m'absente, le courage m'habite. Je couronne à l'anathème pour la patria. Mais moi baptisé par ses couture, par Sankara Lumumba. Aïe Borura Didi me Willitai. Milieu dans la dame dream, Gucci Prada New Jeans. Real nigga tu le sais, prématuré en exil pour mieux gérer la zone. Avec mes niggas on fait du sale, viens bye on fait le show. Pas de traces qui aurait visé sur un pack, multiples de le flow. All eyes on me, en pleine lune, ma comique. Qui tige touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 mètres jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 ans avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colombe au cristal. D'où je viens moi, les rêves sont interdits. Pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris l'espace de prière. Les pensées destinées aux offrandes pour la patria.
Really dope. Really dope. So the most important thing is that you hear he kind of gives me like a Roddy Ricch vibe based upon the ad-libs. You know how Roddy Ricch be getting like this out. And his voice kind of just reminds me of that. So that's why I said, you know, a Roddy Ricch style, you feel me? So, you know, the most important thing that we're going to be looking at here is let's look at Metric AB, a very important plugin. I'm bypassing the rough and I'm going back and forth between the rough and the track as I'm mixing it to make sure my moves is getting me in the direction I hear in my head. Before I start mixing, I'm damn near like a pottery person. I'm like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci. I'm not saying I'm the same caliber of artist, but I'm an artist, right? And a lot of times great artists, they already have that image in their head, and as they're working towards that image. So let's listen to the rough and what we ended up getting.
Les millions d'alors faibles, ceux qui vont mes guides sont mes frères. Je n'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix sang et cher. Accordez-moi un instant, suis sur le chemin, sur ce serai. Travail 7 sur 7, frère, dit en fer. Encerclé des âmes multicouleurs, mais quelle douleur. Nos siècles de douleur s'évanouissent dans l'oubli. Offenseurs des ancêtres, pleurnicheurs et...
His rough mix was the one in orange, and it sounds like you can tell which one is the rough mix and which one is the real mix. It just kind of sounded very claustrophobic, like a bunch of people cramped into a busy elevator or something like that. You couldn't really hear the depth. Okay, so the first thing, let's look at what we did with the 2-track beat. I used the God particle. I use this shit so much. I love how it has a stereo widening, and it also is introducing a mid-range bump. A lot of times with the 2-track beats, you know, you don't have the opportunity to adjust the kick and the bass, and you maybe want to make it hit harder. I use the God particle. All right, so let's look at this simple change.
Les millions de la gare faible.
beat has a lot of low level details like that. It reminds me of Fireflies. You know, there's a fireflies. That song from Owl City. Those synths kind of remind me of it, the way it's winding and shit. And I love that sound, so I want to bring it up. So after that, I use the iZotope Ozone. I use the just the maximizer part, right, with the limiter and stuff. I use the upwards compressor. I use this a lot on 2-track beats to bring out that low level detail. So that's what it's doing. It's kind of raising the roof. You feel me? Like imagine like a supervillain that's trying to crush you onto a ceiling. That's what a limiter has. It has a ceiling, right? And the upwards compressor is taking the floor and bringing it upwards, right? So all that low level, good orange juice pulp, that's what we bringing back into the song. So that's a great way, especially when you feel like maybe the vocals might be overpowering the beat, and maybe you bring the vocal down a little bit, but then it's that detail. Sometimes it's not about the balance between the vocal and the beat. Sometimes it's literally you got to squash the beat with maybe something like an upwards compressor or an MV2 to bring back low level detail. All right, and did I use this? Well, let's look. Just bringing a little bit more presence, a little bit more air, a little bit more height to the beat, all right, by boosting that. All right, the next thing, let's look at the very first thing, okay, is gonna be our lead vocal chain, all right? So first thing we use is the auto-tune. I know Roddy Ricch, I wasn't even thinking about Roddy Ricch, but most importantly, this artist, this just sounded really good for his French rap. I do understand some of the words, as my language derives from French. It's not the same thing, but I understand the song. He's talking a little bit about religion. He's talking about lumière, please God, give me a light. Then he's talking about, that doesn't take the place of prayer. He's saying a lot of bars that I kind of understand. So I kind of already understood the subject matter, and I understood the theme of the song. I already knew what costume to wear to the Halloween party. Okay. And these are the auto-tune settings I came up with. The retune speed is, somewhat, on the good side, and humanize is pretty moderate. I would consider this to be moderate auto-tune settings. All right. Then we have a very important plugin is Split S. I always put this at the beginning of my chain because this is kind of like it's using volume automation, kind of like automatic volume automation to like a de-ess the vocal. So this is not really a de-esser. It just knows, hey, there's an S. Let me bring the volume down of that specific section to make it, less hard.
Faire sauter toute la city by my side. I go higher. Tête haute, les yeux en flammes. Pour les millions dans la gare faible, ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix sang cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur je serai. Travaille 7/7 pour les frères, dit en fer.
Yeah, so he says he's working all the time for his brothers and stuff like that. Travail, something set. You feel me? For my brothers, you feel me? He's working a lot type shit. So okay, after that, then I did like a freaking what's this called? Frequency sweep, and these are all dynamic bands. So only when there's a build up, we're notching down the frequency. So this just makes the vocal sound super clean.
Faire sauter toute la city by my side. I go higher. Tête haute, les yeux en flammes. Pour les millions dans la gare faible, ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères.
So yeah, I just went in there, and then after that, when I got it, usually these are like room resonances. So once you do this on one vocal thing, I just dragged it down to the rest of them, all right? Then I use the spiff. He's talking French, and, it kind of reminds me of, like, for example, right now I'm chewing gum, and, like, my lips are kind of smacking, and there's, like, a smacking type of sound. When I hear that in somebody's voice, and I don't do this all the time, but sometimes it can become annoying as fuck, especially because the auto-tune is winding and shit like that, too, winding up the vocal and modulating it. So that's why I'll bring in some, like, the remove mouth click preset on spiff. I love this a lot. So, It just makes the auto tune sound cleaner. You know how the auto tune is winding up and ding, 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 making all those little pop noises and shit. It's making the auto tune sound cleaner and more pro and mainstream.
Jamais dû le faire, au prix sang et cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur je serai. Travail 7 sur 7 pour les frères, dit en fer. Encerclé des armes multicouleurs, mais quelle douleur.
So yeah, you hear it. That's what it's taking out. It's taking all those max smacks and all that stuff like that. It's making the vocal sound more perfect, you know, because, you know, like in this song, he's talking about purity, he's talking about religion, and that's kind of what I envisioned in my head to be something like in a church, an angel with no flaws, you know, type shit. Okay, so those are like the pre-processes before that I'd even hit the vocal, and usually I do my pre-processing on my audio track for the people who want to like figure out how I work. Okay, so yeah, you know, this shit is like some of the first stuff I do. Then I hit, once I got everything sounding equal and stuff like that, then I do me a real vocal chain. Okay, I do me a real vocal chain. And in my vocal chain, I started off with a limiter because I just noticed that his vocals, they were kind of like, you know, they're in some need of kind of like evenness. And I just like how limiters control the tone of his vocal too, you know. So I use a Faraday limiter, and I like this because it gives me some options like transformer saturation. Also get a sidechain filter. Maybe I want my limiter to be clean. So the limiter is just going to be working on those parts that are just over the top that, you know, and it's good to hit the vocal with a limiter in the beginning, because imagine that all those words that have more impact are going to disrupt the flow of the chain. I imagine it to be like a factory with a conveyor belt, right? These are all the parts inside the conveyor belt, and now they're about to hit the you know, the vocal chain, which is another part of the conveyor belt. If maybe one gigantic piece is too big, is going to fuck up the whole assembly line. So that's kind of why I have the limiter there to even everything out, you know.
Jamais dû le faire, au prix sang et cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur je serai. Travail 7 sur 7 pour couleur. All eyes on me, en pleine lutte. Viens on fait le show. Pas de trace qui aurait visé sur un pack, multiples de le flow. All eyes on me, en pleine lune, ma comique. Qui tige touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 mètres jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de patria. Mais moi baptisé par ses coups par son cap.
That word baptisé, you feel me? Baptized and stuff like that. That word has a good amount of energy because it's baptisé. You feel me? Type shit. That means to baptize in French. So yeah, so that's the reason why I use the limiter. I imagine it to be like when you're ironing out a shirt. Now that you're ironing out this shirt on an ironing board and shit like that with an ironer, you know, what you'll do is now you're bringing out the beautiful detail in the shirt. Now you get to see how the shirt really looks like because it's ironed out and shit. So that's how I see it. Then after I use the REQ, just something there hollowing out my mid range and, you know, getting everything to just feel pro mainstream. Just a simple EQ move.
Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. D'où je viens moi, les rêves sont interdits. Pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris l'espace de prière. Les pensées destinées aux offrandes pour la patria.
So it just brings in some of that clarity. All right. And after that, we use the Weiss de-esser. Between using a split S and using Weiss de-esser, your vocals is already going to sound perfect. You feel me? The Weiss de-esser is good because, as you can see right here, is a mastering grade. It's a mastering grade de-esser, and with mastering grade de-essers, they retain better fidelity because this de-esser is made to go over a whole mix. I've explained it many times. But if you use the combination of split S, right? You use split S and you use this de-esser, you're like, all the harshness is gonna be gone. You know, you're gonna have little to no harshness, to be honest.
$1,000,000 dans mes jeans. Gucci par les new jeans. Real nigga, tu le sais. Prématuré en exil pour mieux gérer la zone. Avec mes niggas, on fait du sale. Viens bye, on fait le show. Pas de trace qui aurait visé sur un pack, mais tu peux citer le flow. All eyes on me, en pleine lune, ma comique. Kitty, j'touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 3-6, c'est mec du jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées.
Alright, so my de-esser is never working that hard. After that pop vocal preset, hollowing out the mid-range even more. That's what gives that pro mainstream rap sound, hollowing out the mid-range. But you don't want to make it too hollow because that's the life force of the vocal.
Plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 3-6, c'est mec du jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 ans avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. D'où je viens moi, les rêves sont interdits. Pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris l'espace de peur des ancêtres. Pleure ni et nouveau. Je m'absente, le courage m'habite. Je couronne à l'anathème pour la paix.
Really just opens up the vocal. All right, after that I use the CLA 76 on parallel mode. All right, and I just use this for presence. This is literally if you want vocal presence and your vocal to be up front, turn on this plugin, default preset, just do the parallel mix knob. The sound of the transistors and the transformer, just the components alone, is going to give that density in the mid-range that pushes stuff forward. So now it sounds more forward like a Roddy Ricch vocal.
N'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix ça me cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur ce serai. Travail 7 sur 7 pour les frères, dit enfer. Encerclé.
So yeah, this time I did compress a little bit. Sometimes you guys will see me just turn off the compressor, just use it as a straight up saturator. So that after that I use the RVox, we know what that do. That's bringing back some of that density through the RVox compression that I was kind of like cutting out like through all these goddamn moves. I've been cutting out so much low mid, I gotta add it back. Then I got a bunch of plugins here, man, like Spectre, Fresh Air from OZONE, OZONE Clarity, the CLA 76, I used it again. J37 tape to throw back in that mid-range. Like, man, this is just like me constantly tweaking this shit. I ain't gonna lie, bro. And this, you know, Pultec is to bring in brightness. I'm just gonna bypass all of them, you know?
N'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix ça me cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur la plus claire des lunes. 3-6, c'est mec du jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 ans avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon.
Doing a lot of work to get that vocal to just cut through, you feel me? Most of this stuff right here is just the same redundant move, like boosting the high mid, right? Because the OZONE Clarity, you guys know what it does. It's going to be upwards, expanding the high end. This is literally the same move over and over again, but I use the different plugins to sculpt that high end how I want, because each plugin has a different sound of high end to it. And as I've sculpted all my high end, I've done all this boosting now, then I come over here to a J37 tape, and a tape plugin towards the end is going to soft saturate that top end that I worked hard to get. So now that I picked the tone that I want and I got it as bright as I want, now I'm going to use the tape towards the end of my chains, which I use a lot, to de-harsh without using another de-esser, yeah? Okay? So that's what we got right there. All right? And after that, then we use the C-Suite Vox. This is a very important plugin for me because, first of all, I like the sound of the oversampling. All the UAD plugins have oversampling in them. That's why they sound just good. And it also like kind of cleans up some background noise and shit like that. It's not even cleaning up background noise. How can I say this plugin just isolates it? Imagine like an interrogator, like a professional person who's interrogating somebody like in the FBI or some shit like that. It just isolates it in a room, in the space itself, you know?
Au prix ça me cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur ce serai. Travail 7 sur 7 pour les frères, dit enfer. Encerclé des armes multicouleurs, mais quelle douleur. siècles de douleur s'évanouissent dans l'oubli. Offenseurs des ancêtres, pleurnicheurs et nouveaux. Je m'absente, le courage m'habite. Je couronne à l'anathème pour la patria. Mémoire baptisée par ses couture.
So yeah, I just enjoyed what that was doing for me. And you know, there's another thing you gotta think about too. You over here boosting all this high end and shit. This is a little basic ass SSL I use, nothing crazy. I'll go over it real fast, but you know, you over here boosting all this top end, you gotta be you know, aware of the fact that you're also boosting noise in the recording. So that's why, you know, I got my top end to sound the way I did. I liked it. And then I hit it with a noise reduction plugin because I know I didn't just increase so much top end from all those different plugins. So let's see what the SSL is doing. It's doing the same move as I heard a nasty resonance up here. I cut it out. And then I just worked on my low mid a little bit more and everything like that. I think I did this backwards though, because once I hit that tape bump, I was like, man, let me go backwards and like kind of like cut it a little bit before it hits the tape and gets a little too sloppy. And even the CLA 76, because it's got a transformer, is gonna, you know, help with a little bit of that low mid. You feel me? It's not as focused as some other you know, plugins, analog plugins, in the way it increases like that low mid bump, but a lot of analog model plugins, they just keep packing the mid range. That's why I did that.
Au prix sans cher, accordez-moi un instant sûr. Je sais, le dollar dans mes jeans, Gucci par les new jeans. Real nigga, tu le sais. Prématuré en exil pour mieux gérer la zone. Avec mes niggas, on fait du sale. Le dollar dans mes jeans, Gucci par les new jeans. Real nigga, tu le sais. Prématuré en exil pour mieux gérer la zone. Avec mes niggas, on fait du sale. Bien bas, on fait le show. Pas le dollar dans mes jeans. Gucci par les new jeans. Real nigga, tu le sais. Prématuré en exil.
Ever so slightly tapping it, you know, push and pull between the expander and the compressor. That's all that's doing is bringing in that dynamic, you know, because we use the limiter to take out some of the dynamics. Now we reduce the dynamics using the limiter. I want to bring back some controlled dynamics using the SSL, you know, using a little bit of expander. That expander pumps up the vocal upwards. It adds volume. You feel me? So yeah, kind of like a push and pull thing. All right. Then we have a Tube Tech CL1B. I use that on parallel. This is important. I'm not gonna lie. This shit bring presence when we use it on parallel mode.
Le dollar dans mes jeans, Gucci par les new jeans. Real nigga, tu le sais. Prématuré en exil pour mieux gérer la zone. Avec mes niggas, on fait du sale. Bien bas, on fait le show. Pas de trace qui aurait visé sur un pack, mais tu peux citer le flow. All eyes on me, en pleine lune, ma comique. Qui tige touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 make jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi.
Yeah, so you're taking advantage of that tube saturation. We also did it right here. That's why I picked the Fairchild, all right? Taking advantage of that tube saturation. Just using the saturation to season the soup, grease up the pan, you know, oil up the bread, all right? We have a bunch of different effects. This was like my first reverb. I used the Sunset Chamber because I wanted clarity. And usually if you want clarity vocals, you might want to use a Sunset Chamber reverb, because you have to understand the density area of the reverb. For this reverb right here, a chamber reverb, the density area is usually in the high mid. For a room reverb, it's usually in the low mid. For an ambience reverb, it could be whatever. Sometimes the hall, it could be whatever. You just got to hear it. You feel me? I know damn well for sure though, a chamber reverb, the density area is supposed to be in the high mid. That's like a fact. And a room reverb is in the low mid. You walk into your roomie, what's the main complaint with bedroom vocals? Oh, this is that muddy low mid resonance. That's just the coming down to the shape of the room. You feel me? The shape of, you know, that's literally science, bruh. All right. Then we got a Valhalla, because he's over here rapping with the melodic autotune. I use the chorus space. I like this because this introduces some modulation into the reverb, and when you have some modulation baked into your effects, whether it's a reverb or a delay or whatever, or a phase or ad lib, it starts to wash away the auto tune, so it makes the auto tune sound smoother. That's why I picked that. All right, and then I just use a basic ass S1 to widen it. All right, and I went with an extended top end. I think I went with an extended top end on one of these. Yeah, this one I would consider that extended top end, 10K, right? And that's important. That's why the whole song kind of shimmers. You hear like the reverb kind of shimmers and it kind of shakes and all that stuff like a maraca. We have our delay. I felt like towards the end of the mix, the delay wasn't cutting through. So what did I do? I used the basic ass EQ. You can do this with anything, but then I cranked up a little 5K bell going into the H delay, and this is kind of probably also gonna make the delay distort a little bit more because now like it's kind of just hitting into the thing harder, kind of like a hockey person when they get checked up on that glass, and imagine it to be like that. I'm like now I'm taking the EQ and shoving it a little bit more into the H delay, so now it's producing a different type of effect. I use the chorus more like kind of like a widener. I wasn't really trying to actually hear the chorus in it. But like how I said, it's good to tuck a little bit chorus, flanger, phaser all throughout, your reverbs. Don't leave it all to one thing, but you just slowly simmering the salt all throughout the dish. And what that's doing is that's just making the auto-tune blend in better. So that's why my auto-tune sounds smooth as fuck, you know? And then I used the Valhalla delay, just a basic ass delay, and I threw that thing. I threw it. I did a quarter note delay. I threw that right here. There was some throws. I think there's another throw right here.
Dans la gare aux faibles, ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire.
Just some stuff to like kind of like fill up the spaces and stuff like that, because there were some pauses. But as an engineer too, I know I want to let the song breathe. So there's some times when I don't fill it up, but strategically in the beginning of the song, I filled it up because I didn't want shit to get boring. Like, oh, there's already a pause. That's kind of like fucking boring. Like if you watch the movie and then there's already like a blank screen early on in the movie. Yeah, maybe you can get away with it later on in the movie, but in the beginning you can't. So making a song is like a movie in that sense. Then we have an H3000. I just used the micro shift preset. And I like that because it has like a widening effect for the vocal. All right. So I just call it wide. All my effects are dumped into this Soothe too, and this helps make all my effects sound clean.
Dans la gare aux faibles, ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire, au prix ça me cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin, sur je serai. Travaille 7 sur 7 pour les frères, dit en faire.
All that low mid and stuff like that that's building up. That's being produced by like the reverb and the delays, and they're crisscrossing each other. The soothe is coming in there and taking that out, and it's just making my lead vocal sound more clean and clear. Coming over here to our ad-libs. Usually my ad-libs are at the bottom because my ad-libs usually have independent effects, like their own independent reverb, and that's how you separate the ad-libs from the delay. Yeah, sometimes it's cool to share the delay of the lead vocal with the background vocal, but just know, if you want to really separate them and make them get that depth and that 3D you're looking for, sometimes you want to give them a completely new effect. And it's good to give the listener a new piece of candy. Give them a reward, give them an Easter egg for playing the game. You feel me? Which is listening to the song, Give them a DLC or some shit. All right. So now we come into this first ad lib. I just call it porch. I don't know why the fuck I call it that. I use a limiter a lot of the times on the ad libs because ad libs are like, whoa, whoa. They're very volatile, like cryptocurrency in volume, right? So they go up and down. Those are the most energetic parts. So kind of just wanted to keep them pretty stable.
Les amitiés couleurs, tout repasse encore à l'Umba. Qui touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 make jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG met dans la lumière.
When I got these ad-libs originally, they were all in one long ass thing. So that's how I do my ad-libs. I start to listen to that whole block and I start to drag them down to different tracks, and then I start to create different ad-lib tracks, and then maybe I might take this one, I might bring it down, and I start to mix and match it. So that's how I get my ad-libs to sound the way they do, because that's how I do my shit. All right. I wanted to dim down the high end, right? So there's going to be an ad-lib that's dark. There's going to be an ad-lib that's kind of in between, and there's going to be an ad-lib that's bright. That's how I do my ad-libs, and that's how I create 3D depth, because I'm showing you what the length is, what the width is, and what the height is. All right. And I'm doing that with my high end, and even sometimes the low end and the mid range. All right. So then I use the H3000. I use the micro pitch shift to just, this is a dub. This is like he repeated the lines. I know that there was some ad libs that he started repeating the lines of what he was saying on a lead vocal, and then I just turned those into dub, and I gave it its own space using the room reverb. All right, so that's how we came down to that chain. Then this next ad lib right here, let's check it out. I wanted to give it a Travis Scott type of distorted effect, Don Toliver, you know, when they're screaming in the background, being melodic. So I used the SSL-E and I distorted the mic pre. And yeah, that's how I got my distortion type of sound from an analog distorter, which is the mic pre over here. And I distorted that shit like crazy. Not even, just a moderate amount of distortion, a moderate amount of hot seasoning. I used the lossy, which is also going to introduce some digital artifacts, as they call it. Kind of like when you're on the phone, you're online, you're on Skype or FaceTime, and then you start bling, bling, you hear like these fucking weird dropouts and shit. That's what it does. I prefer using this over just the typical, roll off the top, roll off the bottom type of EQ, and that's why I have here. It has a little bit more character, And then after that, we have the Faraday limiter, like how I said, it's controlling the volatility. All right, so you see what we're working with right there, and you see how that limiter is controlling these ad-libs that are going all over the place. We're keeping them in check like a little brother, all right? And then these last ad-libs right here, these had a flanger. Just use the default preset, and I pull back the mix knob, and the rate is something I always listen to. I don't want my rate to be too fast because I don't want my stuff to sweep. It's going to start sweeping, kind of like when you flush the toilet. It's going in circles, and you can hear the circular motion of the water. I don't want that sound. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. So my rate is usually slow. And these are my brightest ad-libs. And like how I said, I'm showing them what bright is, I'm showing them what dark is, and what's in between. That's creating that depth. All right, look at the high end. I didn't boost anymore to make these ad-libs bright. I just let the high end be what's there. So I use the natural pulp of the lime to make the lemon juice. You feel me? The lime juice or whatever. You feel me? I just use the natural ingredients of the stuff there. And then all these ad-libs are coming down over here to another soothe. Same preset, just getting rid of those redundancies. Because like how I said, all of these things right here have their own reverb. They have their own custom reverb, their own custom delay and stuff like that. Yeah, they got the flanger and stuff like that, and that can create some redundancies that can muddy up the lead vocal. All right. So last thing that we're gonna be looking at too is the NLS bus. That's just to give a overall flavor. So even though these are all separate, they got their own flavor. And then we did drop a reverb throw right here. Very subtle. I wanted to elongate that Mumbai. You feel me? La pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. Oh, I just did a delay throw because I really felt like that was a passionate moment, especially towards the end of the song. All right. And then now let's wrap this up. Let's look at the mastering chain. Man, we know what my mix bus is usually. I just like it. It's just so consistent. That Fairchild brings in that brightness without doing any EQ. So it's like a smiley face saturation curve because the transformer is going to boost low end. The tube's going to boost top end.
Sphère sauter toute la city by my side. I go higher. Tête haute, les yeux enflammés. Pour les millions de dollars, gare aux faibles. Ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire. Au prix sang cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur le chemin. Sur je serai. Travaille 7 sur 7 pour les frères.
I just love what that plugin does. Like, fuck, I can't get over it, bruh. I've been using that combo for years. Throwing the Pultec. Pultec gonna do the same thing. Gonna bring in that tube. It's also gonna bring in some dirty volume. It makes you see that needle is past 0. It always makes it a little bit louder, but I like it. It adds dirty volume. It adds sauce to the plate. You feel me? To the chicken and rice bowl.
Sphère sauter toute la city by my side. I go higher. Tête haute, les yeux enflammés. Pour les millions de dollars, gare aux faibles. Ceux qui vont me guider sont mes frères. N'aurais jamais dû le faire. au prix sans cher. Accordez-moi un instant sur.
Yeah, so more brightness. Ozone 11. We're using that exciter. We're using the stabilizer on cut mode. This is like another soothe. Doing a little bit of widening. Doing a little bit of vintage limiting. I like how this thing saturates.
Faire sauter toute la city par ma salle. Des armes multicouleurs. Mais quelle douleur. Nos siècles de douleur s'évanouissent dans l'oubli. Offenseurs des ancêtres, pleurnicheurs et nouveaux. Je m'absente, le courage m'habite. Je couronne à l'anathème pour la patria. Mais moi baptisé par ses couture, par Sankara Lumumba.
Just you hear the most important I feel like thing is the effects are getting more love because it's saturator. It's kind of bringing more love to the effects. Now you start to hear the reverb shimmer a little bit more. You hear the delay shimmer a little bit more. You hear the rate between the modulation. You know, now it feels like it's bringing in more separation. The width is also great too. The wider mix always feels more epic and ethereal. And the vintage limiter, you know, it makes it louder, but louder in a colored way. So that's why I got that there. Then I used the God particle. I used it. Did I use the limiter? Nah, I ain't used the limiter. I just used it for more God particle. I like using a little bit of amount of just a I use this as a saturation plugin. I don't ever use the EQ. I might use the limiter once in a while. I never use this part right here. I hate this part. Like what this part right here does to a mix is horrible in my opinion. You know, because why the fuck do I want a multi-band compressor on my 2-bus and I can't change the attack and release? If I could change the attack and release, I would definitely use it more, but I can't change the attack and release. And I don't like how I can't get my vocal to become more forward without tapping this mid-range thing a little too hard. That's why I just never use it. It just never worked for me. And for me, maybe it works for you, but for me, it doesn't. But I still get some use out of this knife, even though if I don't use the same knife to cut tomatoes like you would, all right? So, using it for more saturation. This is widening as well. That's why I ain't go bonkers with my widener on my imager, because I knew I had the God particle, which is also going to help me give it a little bit widening.
Qui tige touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 mètres jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 ans avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. D'où je viens moi?
More density. It just puts some pounds and some weight on my vocal, all right? And then after, not the vocal, but the whole mix, you know? And then we use the Spectre. I love this preset I have right here, where I just use a little bit of this warmth tube right here in the low mid and the high end. And I'm just, you know, at this point, the mix sounds really good, but I'm just going back and forth between the reference. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm in a good place. Let me get this to be over the top and sound mainstream in clarity, right? So yeah, I like how like this is giving me more weight, but I'm getting to pick exactly where I want that weight to be at.
Qui tige touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 mètres jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais 6 ans avec tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de.
What it's doing to the song a lot, you know, you hear that. It's giving more body, a little more top end excitement. I use this right here, balance to the Grammys. I always do this because I know like all these analog model plugins gonna start piling up some oh, the fresh air is important as fuck. Hold up.
Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. D'où je viens moi, les rêves sont interdits. Pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris l'espace de prière.
It's so important to the mix, man. I just love the high end that thing can give. I don't use it too much, but I just love the high end. And you know, at that point, because I use this plugin, I know I gotta probably deharsh that same region, all this low mid activity that I kind of got going on, you know. So that's where that this Soothe plugin comes in at.
Je reconnais la pierre précieuse du colon au cristal. D'où je viens moi, Les rêves sont interdits, pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris l'espace de prière. Je reconnais la prière précieuse du colombe au cristal. D'où je viens moi, les rêves sont interdits, pourtant je persiste à rêver. Mes actes ont pris.
Cleans up the mix, and then we ended off with a Pro L, and we're hitting -9 on this thing.
Kitty, je touche au plus près, la plus claire des lunes. 360 make jack. Ça c'était moi qui étais quoi. OG mettons la lumière sur le passé. Je t'aime et qui t'aimera à vie dans mes pensées. Plus jamais si j'avais tous mes œufs dans le même panier. Perceur de causes cachées, bien que je continue de creuser. Je
Yeah, so that's pretty much the end of the video here today. That was a full mix breakdown for free. All right, if you guys ever want to get a mix and have me, you know, fucking pimp your track, go ahead and check the link down below. Hit me up. I'm always happy to work. I'm happy I was able to give you guys some gems. You guys can replay and really dissect the song and figure out how to get that mainstream clarity, you know, vocal that today we here perfected. Just want to say thanks a lot. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check the links down below to support the channel. If you feel like, oh man, this guy helped me, you know, go ahead and show some love back. And I appreciate you now, my YouTube gang. Peace.